What's up, guys? So our topic for the Saving the World project is human overpopulation, and this is by Nick, Adam, Harrison, and Caleb. So first of all, what's the problem? To start off, defining human overpopulation is this is when there are too many people for the environment to sustain with either food, drinkable water, or breathable air. And right now, there are way too many people on Earth to support. So currently, there are about 7.8 billion people, billion human beings on Earth. So basically, what we need to do is find a way to make such a large amount of humans less detrimental to the Earth. And if we don't find a solution to this like ever-growing and inevitable problem, then life on Earth or any life could perish. So if we want a future with humans living on this Earth, we suggest to start taking action now. So here's some just kind of backup research on human overpopulation. So it took about 200,000 years for humans to reach 1 billion people alive at once. But now scientists estimate that 1 billion more people come in every 12 years. And according to the United Nations and other like reports, there will be about 10 billion people on this earth by 2050. And as you can see on the graph, it's just going up exponentially. So what can we do kind of start off? And one of the solutions or just things we can start off with is educating people on overpopulation. So it's always a good way to just learn more about the topic and just how right now we're detrimental or just human overpopulation is detrimental to the world. So this solution might work kind of like educating might work for about 20% of the people who really care, but for the rest, for the 80%, they really don't care. So and that's what we need to focus on the majority. So this leaves us with just kind of focusing more on other fixes. And although we can acknowledge it can help to a certain extent, so if we can educate, and even if it only affects a small percentage, that still be progress in the whole fight against overpopulation. So how we would plan on educating people? One way is we could accomplish this is by just making it a more common issue, spreading awareness, and just kind of making it fall into the same categories as like climate change, pollution, and just kind of like a chain reaction. People will see the effects like climate change, and human population is just kind of one of the first and most pressing issues. So through raising awareness, schooling, and other means of spreading the information, we can educate as many people as possible. And this is obviously a possible solution, but it's not one of our top ones because it probably won't be as effective or it's on the same strength as the other ones. So now let's continue to what our plan is.
So our plan consists of four steps. Number one is to incentivize less children per family. Number two, consume less food and energy. Number three, expand upwards as well as outwards. And number four, relocate population overflow. To incentivize. So we would give incentives to people who choose to have one kid or no kids. So some incentives we would give to them are tax breaks, more land, and cash for only having one or no kids, like I said. Um, this would be very beneficial financially for them. Um, this would make it these families more inclined to only have one children or less, and people will receive benefits also like life insurance and healthcare. So number one is incentivizing less children per family. So slowing the birth rate is crucial to controlling the population. So incentives for smaller families will include extra food, money, health benefits, and tax cuts. So this will make it a lot easier and more beneficial if you only have one kid. And this will also make it very easy to persuade people. The plan will be also to take money from the military budget and also slightly raise taxes so that we can afford this. A reason that we cannot sustain the current number of humans on the planet is because of our consumption levels. As a species, we are consuming at a rate that is more than what we can give. So at some point, we'll run out. We can start by using less and also stop wasting the likes of water, electricity, food, and other essential resources. Renewable resources. So humans are currently very reliant on power sources that are not renewable or have a finite amount available, such as fossil fuels. So we as humans use fossil fuels to power our houses and to run our cars, but we need to switch to more renewable resources like solar and wind energy to help preserve the Earth's materials and to help the environment as a whole. The more people we have on Earth, the more fossil fuels will be consumed. And if we can find a way to slow down population growth, then fewer fossil fuels will be consumed. And There will be more of an eco-friendly energy sources that will be used.
Now, continuing with examples of renewable resources, one great source of renewable energy is to build dams that produce hydroelectricity. Made by hydropower, this form of renewable energy produced about 70% of all renewable energy used in 2015. Now, that's obviously with only the dams that existed in 2015, but with that stat and building more dams, that obviously can provide much, much more energy for the exponentially growing population that we're talking about. Now, also a big problem with overpopulation is more people, more cars on the road, and more carbon emissions, which is why we should shift towards electric cars like Tesla, which prevent that gas-powered emissions that hurt the environment and cause the climate change, because that would be just a staggering effect for the amount of people that we're talking about on Earth who own cars. That would just be so much gas emissions. So that's why we would shift towards electric cars more. Now, windmills and solar panels are reliable sources too. They're being used already, but obviously with more people, more solar panels, more windmills, just produces more energy. Now, this all wraps up in the phase of the plan: consume less. That means consume less energy, food, and water. The main problem is that too many people on Earth strain the resources and affect the environment. This phase of the plan would shift the world towards renewable energy rather than fossil fuels, reducing the effects and emissions, but keeping up with the demand for energy. So that would provide clean, renewable energy. The plan for lessening the amount of food people consume is a ration system for food per household every week. This would be proportionate to the size of the household, so a family of 3 would not get the same food as a family of 6. This would be a system making sure that nobody's starving, everyone's living comfortably, but just the system would be in place to ensure the resources aren't being strained, that everybody has food. In order to prevent water waste, there'd be a monthly limit on showers, baths, toilets, all that stuff, just water usage. And water usage over that limit every month would carry with it overcharges, just to prevent water waste and make sure that we're not destroying our freshwater supply with everybody on Earth. Now, phase 3, some information about it. Building up, obviously, as well as expanding outwards. Building upwards just maximizes the space that we have and how many people can fit into that space. Obviously, building more apartments on more and taller buildings fits more people into cities and makes them more densely populated. This would leave us with more space that we can expand horizontally, so we can build vertically. Since we can theoretically, with technology, we can build vertically forever, but horizontally there's a finite amount of space. Now, as you can see here, the growth of the New York City skyline, for example, is evident and can continue easily with incentives. This would include benefits for buildings above 1,500 feet, because only about 3 buildings qualify for this, so it's not such an easy benchmark that every building would be able to get it, but there are enough buildings that are right under it that companies could push for it, including more apartments and places for people to live while getting the benefits. Now, okay, so phase 3 encompasses all of this. In the last 70 years, the height of buildings in cities has been growing exponentially along with the population. The tallest buildings in the 1950s were about 175 meters. Now the tallest buildings usually reach 500 meters. Those are like the tallest buildings in New York. So keeping this trend going benefits the population because of the simple fact that more people could fit in the same amount of space, giving more room for the population to expand outward. The way that this would be implemented is in the form of partial government funding for big housing complexes and tax breaks for buildings above a benchmark of about 460 meters. This tall benchmark prevents too many buildings from taking advantage of this without actually helping the problem, and it's a benchmark that companies can easily push for.
The last possible solution that we've come up with for human overpopulation would be to move the population. There are obviously considerable challenges to moving most of the population to uninhabited areas. Most areas that are easily accessible and habitable for humans are already populated. This means that there will be climate issues that will need to be solved to give the growing population more space. Populate areas where there are less people.
Some of the least populated places on Earth include Greenland, Iceland, and Australia. In the US, the least populated states are Wyoming, then there's Vermont with a little more, then North Dakota with a little more than that, and then South Dakota with a little more than that. It is important to get people to live in less densely populated areas in order to help with the problem of overpopulation. Ways to do this are decrease prices for land and houses, possibly as incentives for people with less children. We could populate harsher climates. Many areas are not densely populated that aren't densely populated are bitter cold or scorching hot and would not be suitable conditions for humans to live in. Greenland is a country that only has 0.03 people per square kilometer. However, most of the country is uninhabitable due to the vast Arctic tundra that makes up most of it. In order to make places like Greenland and Antarctica habitable for people, the climate must be altered through artificial means. This solution, however, would no doubt hurt the environment. If all ice in Greenland melted alone, the sea level would rise 20 feet. Overall, this idea of relocating populations is basically revolving around the idea of population density because it plays a major factor in human overpopulation. It tells you how many people per square mile occupy a territory, and population densities, while some areas are low enough to not be problematic, such as Australia, it must be leveled out because other areas like India and China are way too overpopulated, and it causes a lot of problems for the Earth, like pollution and climate change. While some areas are uninhabitable, like Antarctica, many less densely populated places are suitable for humans to thrive in. Possible barriers for our plan. Some barriers for our plan of human overpopulation is that, well, for one, we would need the cooperation of many different countries and world leaders for any sort of international plan to occur. But however, one possible solution would be to run the plan through the United Nations, as it's a great way to get our idea to as many different nations and countries as possible. Another barrier is that people are likely unwilling to move to a faraway location for maybe what might be a little sum of money, but one possible yet inconvenient solution to this, because money doesn't grow on trees, would be that if you offer enough money, there are bound to be some people that are swayed by the idea. In conclusion, we have developed our plan to reduce the effects of human overpopulation, and we strongly believe that we are able to do just that. This is a very serious matter because it is a main cause of climate change and global warming. If there weren't nearly as many humans on Earth, then global warming may not exist. But due to the vast amounts of areas with high population densities and overall too many people, the Earth is constantly warming. If we don't do something about this issue soon, it may be too late to save the Earth. And here are the sources.